Welcome to Break Free from Corporate, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you business success secrets from leading entrepreneurs with one thing in common. They left the corporate world, became their own boss, and are now living incredible lives. To access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.
All right, welcome everyone. This is Gavin Sequeira here from Break Free from Corporate, and excited to bring you another exciting podcast. Today, I've got one of my good friends and really someone I also look up to. He's a fellow mentor in the space of helping other people, be better versions of themselves. And his name is Melo Colarco. Melo, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome to the program. When I first met you, I think it was last year at a TED Talk.
TED Talk, that's
yeah.
right.
You know, and that's a fascinating thing to be at. You know, it was one of my first times being there, and I was, completely inspired by everyone I met, including yourself. And I just thought, once I heard your story, I said, at some point I've got to get you on and share it. So I'm going to share a little bit about who you are with our audience, just so they get to know you a little bit. Melo is someone who has done pretty much everything. He has traveled around the world multiple times. He bikes, he treks, he cycles. He's done something like over 30,000 kilometers on a mountain bike, I believe, Melo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? You've traversed places like Africa, Asia, India, Nepal, Europe, North America. There's not too many places you probably haven't been. And the fascinating thing is, from what I've read and heard and what you've told me, is you've overcome many obstacles, many things, including some near-death experiences. Maybe you'll share something with us later on.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is you also have come from that place of having a really strong meditative and spiritual background. And that's sort of grounded you and helped you, I suppose, develop into what you do today. And we'll definitely touch on that. You know, he does things like performance coaching, mindfulness meditations, facilitates large corporate events. He does all sorts of things where he's helping large companies, large groups of people, and he's making a real difference in the world. And it's really, really fascinating work that he does. And Melo, welcome to the program, man.
Thank you, Gavin. It's a nice introduction. And,
yeah. Excited to have you with us.
Great. Yeah, a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the work that I do now professionally in my role as a high performance coach and mindfulness coach is probably learnt on my lessons in life along the way, and my lessons of cycling around the world on my mountain bike, where I did traverse all those countries that you mentioned. And really, that's where I really cut my teeth and learnt a lot of life lessons like resilience and strength and facing fears and trust and compassion and kindness. So a lot of that's translated into my professional role now in the work that I do as a mindfulness coach and facilitator. So I do a lot of work in the corporate space, like you mentioned. I work with athletes, helping them get a positive mindset. I work in mental health clinics. I work with anything from deep depression to anxiety to psychosis.
Wow.
And yeah, I love the work that I do, and I love the variety. To be honest, I love the variety of working with a mental health patient and also a high performing athlete and everything in between. And I feel blessed to be able to do so.
No, that's fascinating. And look, I talk to a lot of people. I know you do as well. And sometimes the skills that you develop along over life's journey, you can't really read in a book or do a course and learn. It's more the lessons, the hard life lessons that you picked up during the course of life. And it just seems to me like a lot of the core things that you've learned and believe in and all, you've really picked up over your journeys, over your travels, over the hardships that you've gone through. Would you say that's how it is?
Absolutely, yeah. I do have the pieces of paper to say I do what I do. For example, I am a certified performance coach. I am a certified mindfulness facilitator. And actually just recently I picked up another piece of paper only last week, which is a mental health first aid certificate.
Oh,
course.
Congratulations.
Which is great. And I know they're all certifications and they're all formalized, but in many ways, all of the lessons that I learned in life really brought me to where I am today. Especially a thing like mindfulness, for example. Mindfulness you cannot, really pick up and read in a book. You have to experience it, and it's very experiential. So I've been practicing meditation for, over 30 years, and I initially entered through martial arts practice, through Shaolin Kung Fu and Tai Chi. So yes. I practiced for many years, and that's always been a foundation of my life, and it's formed my decisions that I do in life, and it's really helped me to give me some grounding. And yeah, so the mindfulness practice has always been there, and the meditation practice has been there. And it's not something you can just pick up a textbook or do a quick 6-week course in and learn it, overnight. It's something you need to experience over time. So that's where I really value the work that I've done over the years, and appreciate the masters and teachers that have taught me over the last 3 decades.
Yeah, 100%. Now, let me ask you this. Obviously, you had quite an adventurous sort of few years prior to you getting your business and everything off the ground. But a lot of the people we talk to come from traditional corporate backgrounds. The go to school, work hard, go to university, get good grades, work in a job, work your way up through management, all that sort of thing. And then you hit this point somewhere in your career where, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? What else is there to life? What else could I be doing? And you start questioning all these things. At what point did you ever either hit that point, or, were you one of those people right from the very beginning, you knew you wanted to do something different? Did you come from that traditional corporate background yourself?
Not really traditional. I tried a variety of different jobs, from horticulture to production work to working in health and fitness. So I've tried a whole lot of things, and as long as I was following and aligning with my values, I was okay to do those sort of things as short-term things. But at the end of the day, it's really about purpose and mission and values and vision, and aligning with that for the big term. But I've done some unfulfilling jobs too over the years.
We all have.
Yeah, we all have.
Yeah.
And in the realm of corporate, I've done a fair bit of like corporate sales and corporate things like that, which is okay, but that didn't really fulfill me, on a deeper level. So I did it as a means to make money and things. But at the end of the day, there's transitions that I followed and evolved actually over time into different spaces.
Yes, and you mentioned something really important there, where you try to do things that align with your values, right? So at what point did you discover your values, or really work out, this is what I stand for, and therefore everything I do has to have integrity and congruence with that? Or did you just, something didn't feel right, you just changed and tried something else? I mean, were you clear on what the values were?
Well, not in the younger years, no. I think values change, obviously, with over time. Values as a parent is very different to values as a teenager, as values as, in between. So they change all the time. But sometimes, to be honest, some of the biggest favors that people have given me is actually sometimes like a restructure, or losing my job, or in many ways a forced change in some ways. And some of the biggest favors and biggest blessings in disguise are when someone does give you a bit of a kick up the bum to leave the company or change, and then following your passion and vision. One example was I was working in corporate sales and doing some fairly unfulfilling work in some ways, and then the owner of the company came in and said, we're doing a restructure now, it's time to change things, and your salary is going to be reduced by X, $20,000 or something like that.
Sure.
And then I really had to question, do I really value what I do enough, to take that pay cut, or shall I look elsewhere? And I literally the very next day says, no, this is not for me anymore. I'm moving on. And that gave me a really good kick up the bum to follow my passion and my values in what I do. And that's when I opened my business in health and wellness and personal training at the time it was. So helping people become, well, not just the typical personal training of building up biceps and all those sort of things. It was more specialized personal training like rehabilitation and things like that. So, and then I ran a very successful business like that for some years, and that helped me evolve. Quickly realizing that the physical people would come to me for physical problems, but they actually were mental problems in many ways. And that helped me develop that side of the business and that side of the work that I do, and then mental health and all these other things came along the way. So had I not taken that little redirection, I wouldn't have evolved into what I'm doing now. So that's given me a big lesson in life, to look at restructures or changes as a redirection or a repurpose. Yeah,
and it's almost like a series of steps leading up to a certain point, isn't it? Like when you look backwards now, you can piece your journey together. But maybe when you were first starting off, I'm sure, like a lot of the people listening on this call, when you start something for the very first time, or you're being forced, like you said, or given that almost decision to make. Do I stay or do I leave? It can be quite challenging at that point. Because you can't see the future, you don't know what's about to come your way. But taking those first steps, you almost have to have a bit of a belief in yourself, don't you?
Absolutely, and that's what I did learn in my cycling trip and travels along the way. To really trust yourself, trust your instincts, believe in yourself, and and continue to trust that journey along the way. And the thing is, we do get very comfortable. I'm not saying I didn't really enjoy the corporate sales job, but I was comfortable in that space. And then even bringing me to this point where I am now, like I got comfortable with personal training and that type of work that I was doing, and I love my clients and working with them, but there was a certain comfort factor that I was still stuck in a way, and then I challenged myself to take the next step where I actually no longer do any physical personal training. I now only do mental training in some ways. So then I had to transition from letting go of my comfort of my beautiful clients that I used to work with and the loyalty that I had with them, and let go of that to then open up the doors for what I do now, which is much more educational and training and coaching in a way. So it's a constant evolution of letting go of some of that and taking on some new challenges and always trusting the journey and as it unfolds along the way.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. I think that's one of the biggest, certainly in my experience dealing with a lot of people that come from that, let's say that corporate space, or even that your typical working environment, where you go in, you work, you probably spend most of your week working and probably less of the time with family and doing things you love to do. And therefore, some people get burnt out. They might resent their work. Their health is not very good. Their mental state might not be very good. All of these like little things that can add up to a bit of negativity on your personal well-being. But then to say to that person, or for that person to suddenly want to let go of the only thing that they have, with those pieces of paper and everything attached to it, and then try something else, that can be a really big stretch for a lot of people. I mean, what would you say to someone who's either, in that position where, they're in that corporate sales job like you talked about, and things aren't going great, they're not loving it, they're not very passionate, pay isn't the best, it's not ticking a few of their boxes, they don't want to spend the next 5-10 years of their life in there. What would you say to someone like that?
Really just trust, really comes back to that trust and trust the process, because we don't, and that's where mindfulness practice is really useful, where we cannot possibly think about 5 years from now or 10 years from now, the future, and have all these what if scenarios. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What if this doesn't work? What if I don't have enough money? What if all these what if scenarios, and you can spend your whole energy, actually you can spend your whole life doing that, to be honest. But really trusting what is, and that's where really sitting with yourself, getting to know your values, getting to know your vision in some ways, getting to know your purpose, if you can find that underneath it all, and really trusting that you always have the resources inside of you all the time to cope with any situation that unfolds. You don't need the future. You don't even need to have the resources for tomorrow. It's just trusting today, trusting right now you have the resources, and then jump into that and trust the process and really give it your best shot. And the worst thing you can have is regrets for not giving it a try. And there is no such thing as a failure. There is no. I look at failures as I don't even use the word in my vocabulary, but they're learning. They're a learning process, and definitely I've made many learning processes in my life and many mistakes that have led me to where I am.
Well, many great inventions or many great people who've done things, we only hear of their success. You don't hear about their so-called failures, but they would have tried things many times, and then just through sheer hard work, perseverance, never giving up, they perfected it or they got it right. And then that's when most people hear about their success. But it's all the years of blood, sweat and tears, leading up to that point, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, like Apple, for example, the iPhone, the Apple iPhone, we're up to number 11 or whatever it is. So we had to go through number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 to get to this point, to constantly tweak and change and improve. And if you ask me what one of the biggest human needs and human desires are in many ways, is actually development and progress. So if you are developing and progressing, you find fulfillment. So if you find that in your job there is no development and progress going on, chances are you're pretty much choking and dying. So it
Mm.
might be time for a bit of a change and develop and learn. I always try to challenge myself every year and take on some big projects or take on some learnings or some courses and training. So I'm constantly developing and progressing in a forward fashion, and that's a great fulfillment.
That's fantastic. And where do you think that comes from, that desire to want to keep learning and growing and challenging yourself, Melo? Is that have you always been like that? Or, can the average person out there who, let's say, has never really set themselves those kind of goals and challenges, and now they're thinking, maybe I should do this. I mean, have you always been that way, or did you get to a point where you decided, you know what, I need to keep growing and learning. I can't sit still. I want to keep evolving.
No, I think the meditation has helped me to find that, but I haven't always been like that. So in my early 20s, I was definitely directionless and didn't know what to do, where to do, taking on any sorts of jobs, being unemployed, and that's where really, when I did start learning the meditation practice to sort of sit with myself and understand myself on a deeper level, that really helped me to progress. Yeah. But it's not a miracle thing. It's not rocket science, as they say. It's a really simple practice. It's just to sit down with yourself, question what's important for you. What are your higher values? If they are to help people, then do that. If it is to do something else, then do that and follow that. It's just a matter of just sometimes stopping and getting out of the busyness of the day-to-day grind and just stopping and being with yourself and doing a couple of exercises around that. And I coach a lot of people in this space just to be for a while and not just always do, because we get confused and it becomes anxious, it becomes overwhelmed and overstimulated. So sometimes just stopping, reevaluating, resetting, and then making decisions. If you make a values-based decision, it's always going to be right.
Right. Okay. Well, that's really good advice. Yeah, because that's coming from internally. You can't, if it's aligned with your values, it's coming out of a space of integrity and congruence and all of those important things. Yeah. Excellent. And so, you mentioned you weren't always like this, which is actually heartening news, because it means you're human. And it also means that if anyone who's listening to this is feeling like maybe they are overwhelmed, or they've been doing, working, they haven't really taken the time out to figure some things out, and suddenly many years have passed by, and now they're feeling a little bit disillusioned. Maybe you've hit a certain age bracket and you haven't achieved the goals you thought you would have achieved 10 years earlier and things like that. There is still opportunity. There's still time. There's still, you can still make changes. It's never too late, correct?
Absolutely, never too late. As long as you've got a heartbeat and you're alive, you can still do things and still jump out of aeroplanes if you want to. At 80 years old, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You always have a choice, and you have one life, right?
That's right. And how would you suggest someone? So if you're suggesting, let's say, they need to take time out from the busyness and just be still, or almost like to do the self-reflection or introspection, or discover their why and their purpose and vision and things like that, where's the best place to start? Like how does someone begin that process, let's say for the very first time, if they had to? What would be something?
Well, there's a variety of resources. It can be anything from reading a book about it. It can be doing a short course, or I strongly advise to find a coach or a mentor in some way to give you a different perspective on the way you're looking at things as an outsider. But it all starts with yourself, just taking those first steps, and whatever your modality of learning is best, whether it's reading or visual or whatever it is, just try to do that and take small steps, one step at a time. Sometimes it can seem like this huge change, but just taking small consequential steps in the right direction can really help you. And it starts with you, and it starts with your why. So that's always a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the why quite often, even in the work that I do with people. And I've just heard that for so many years now, it's almost part of my DNA, right? But when I mention it to someone who's never heard it for the first time, it's quite a challenge. It's like, what is your why? Well, I don't know. What are you passionate about? I don't know. Sometimes I get those answers. Well, what do you want to do? What's your big plan in life? And it's fascinating. A lot of people haven't actually ever thought about it but maybe they've never been asked the question.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, like I said, they just get caught up in the busyness of things. And actually, recently I was working with an executive of a company that I've been working with for a while, and I asked him the simple question was, you know, it was about hobbies. We were talking about hobbies and interests and things, and
Right.
and I asked him, you know, what do you do to wind down? What do you do as a hobby or something like that? And then he just broke down and cried, basically, because
Wow.
he realized it was like 18 years since he last did his hobby. It was 18 years since he last did his, you know, passion and things. Just got caught so much in the busyness of, you know, running a large company and all those sort of things that went along with it that he forgot his why. And we had to strip it right back, you know, to basics and, you know, do a bit of a life pie, so to speak, and look at, you know, what's important to him and bring it back to that, because unfortunately we're just too busy to sometimes introspect and question these things.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, you know, I'm sure you've heard this saying, you know, we don't necessarily live to work, or at least I would like to believe we're not here just to work. You know, work is part of what we do, but we're here to really experience and live life. And really, there's an abundance of things that you can take from this time on the short time that you have on this planet. And if you haven't quite figured out what it is you'd like to be doing, and you know you've gotten to this point in your life, it's time to almost pause, take a bit of a break. It doesn't mean you have to go on a big holiday or anything, but you could even do something for a few minutes a day, couldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. I do recommend that. It's just stopping, having little pauses in your day, and even just to break up and have little renewal breaks, just to constantly check in with yourself, having that self-care type thing, basic self-care. Going away is a great, obviously, option. Sometimes going to a foreign land is a great way to put your life in perspective a little bit, like question what you do back in your home country. That can give you a bit of a shift, but you can also do that within your own place. You know, you can actually, you know, question a few things. And there's a great model, that Japanese model, I'm not sure the pronunciation, Ikagi or Ikagai.
Ikagi, I think. Yep.
Yeah, Ikagi, where they look at, you know, really there's a whole pie of life, and basically you love to do that thing, you share it with the people, it becomes your vocation, becomes everything. And right in the middle of that diagram is basically your purpose or your reason to wake up in the morning.
Yes.
So if everything's aligned with that, then it's easy, actually. You know, it's really easy.
No, that's great. And I mean, I'm sure even in your experience, Melo, you've traveled around the world, you've seen a lot of places. It would have got some really good perspective. Do you feel, you know, if people are listening to this podcast, the fact that they even have access to be able to listen to a podcast or have the technology or have the resources around them, they're already probably in the top maybe 5 or 10% of all the people on this planet in having resources to be able to make decisions to change their life, improve their life. You know, I mean, do you feel like that? Because you've been to a lot of places, maybe poorer places, and some places that don't have the resources, etc. You know, we're quite fortunate that we have the ability to shape our lives to some degree. Yeah,
yes and no. Sometimes it's good to strip it back to basics, though. In many ways, sometimes there can be a lot of noise and a lot of confusion. Too many podcasts to listen to, too many, you know, other people's opinions. Sometimes you need to like strip it back to simplicity. Like, for example, traveling in Africa, where some of those little African children that I spent a lot of time with, they've got nothing. They seemingly have nothing. They're living on the edge of the poverty line, but they're still happy. They're still smiling. Their smiles are still etched in my heart forever.
Yeah.
And it's not from more information. If you strip away everything, if you strip away all the layers of stuff in your life, all the stress, all the anxiety, all the emotions, all the confusion, if you strip it all away, underneath it all, our natural state of being is joy. It's pure joy. And a lot of the coaching work that I do, actually, I've been coaching like top surgeons lately and people in quite high profile and high achievers in many ways in the top of their field. It's what I'm doing with them is taking away some things. Actually, it's not always the putting more into. It's actually stripping away some of that stuff that's a bit too much noise. So it's a twofold answer in a way. Yes, it's great we have all the access and all the knowledge at our fingertips, but if you don't know what to listen to and what to focus on from your simplest values and your simplest means, then it can just be noise and confusion and confuse you even more.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, you can have too much of a good thing and it actually becomes a detriment, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was one particular monastery that I stayed at in my travels, and it was a mindfulness place there in Vietnam. And when you were there, basically, you had to really. It wasn't quite silent retreat. It was a semi-silent retreat, so you could talk a little bit of words.
Okay. Yep.
So if you were, let's say, chopping the vegetables, you were only allowed to talk about chopping the vegetables, like, wow, my carrot looks very orange today, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then when you're eating your meal, you're only allowed to talk about eating. You're not allowed to talk about the weather or other things.
Oh,
And then
fascinating.
when you're washing the dishes, you could only talk about washing the dishes if you wanted to talk at all. And it
Mm.
really taught you just to enjoy moment by moment everything and enjoy the pleasure of life as it unfolds, having a shower, brushing your teeth. And this is where mindfulness practice comes into play. Anyway, when I left that particular monastery, there was a 4-page photocopied booklet that they gave us, this little Buddhist scriptures. And to me, it summed up mindfulness like really simply, like, when you are doing that one thing, just do it. But then when I came back to Australia about 8 years later, I was working in one of the mental health clinics, and one of the head psychiatrists there was very proud of her new book that she just released on mindfulness. And she's a well-regarded psychiatrist. And
Sure.
the book is fantastic, by the way, really, really in-depth book about mindfulness and depression and anxiety. But you know what? In some ways, it almost overcomplicated what a simple practice is. Like, it was 54 chapters. There's 54 chapters on mindfulness, and for the layman, it was probably a bit too much information.
Sure.
Whereas that little 4-page booklet just said it all to me, like it summed it up. And that's getting onto what you're saying. Sometimes too much information can cause confusion if it's not in the right direction.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really good point. Well, I mean, I've been coaching now for a number of years, just like yourself, and been in this sort of space, and I've just seen an influx of information coming in. I mean, everyone's a coach, everyone's a consultant, everyone's an advisor or a mentor or something like that, and that's great because, to be honest, you can't have enough help out there. There's a lot of people looking for it, but it does get confusing. It does get a bit overwhelming for the average person, and unfortunately, when we have too many choices in front of us, we choose nothing.
That's right, because it gets too hard. It's all too hard.
Yeah.
With confusion, if confusion is not addressed in the early stages, it becomes anxiety, and then it just becomes too hard, and then we'll just stop actually before it reaches. Confusion normally equals challenging, and challenging is a good thing. And if you can follow the challenge and I always say, turn to face the challenge a little bit and approach it, or gently turn towards it, then it's a fantastic thing. It means you're learning something. It means you're developing. It means you're progressing. But if the confusion becomes too much in the wrong direction, and you start to feel anxious and really confused and uncertain, then chances are you'll stop and you'll go back to your comfort zone of whatever it was you're doing before.
Yeah. So it's almost a fine balance, So challenges are good, and like you said, I think early on in our chat, I think I strongly believe that we have all the skills, resources, and capabilities within us to meet any challenge. Nothing comes our way that we can't handle. A lot of it's in the mind, to be perfectly honest. I think, if people believe that, then they would meet these challenges and almost be grateful for the next opportunity to challenge yourself. But
Yeah, I've been doing a practice lately, and developed this over the last maybe 6 months or so. Is I call it seek the uncomfortable.
Okay.
So you know how you go through your to-do list of your day and you have a look at things that are priority, etc. So you have different reasons for priority. But I've been doing a thing called seek the uncomfortable. So I look for the thing in my day or my week that is the most challenging, is the most scariest, and it's a thing that I maybe hate doing, for example.
Yeah.
And I meet that head on first up in the morning. It might be a difficult phone call with a client. It might be a difficult challenge or an email I have to write, or it might be something that scares me a little bit. And then I turn to face it, and I meet it first up in the day. There's a whole book about it called Eat the Frog.
I was just going to say Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I've read that.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to that. But this is almost like one step ahead, where you look for it and it's a bit uncomfortable. And now what I do in my day is I almost get disappointed if there's something that doesn't scare me or challenge me. So I keep looking and keep making more things that scare me, keep making more, signing up for things that challenge me. And in that way there, you're constantly doing it. And then all those other things in the day seem easy, like in comparison to that.
I think a really, really good way to approach life. I mean, if you wake up in the morning and you're actually looking forward to meeting that challenge head on, even though it might not be in front of you, you're looking for it. So when it does present itself, there's almost a sense of relief, like, okay, now here it is, you know? And you're ready for it because you've been looking for it. So it's not a surprise. You're not anxious about it. You're not unprepared. You've been waiting for something. You've been looking for something, and here it is. And now you just go about dealing with it and enjoying it because it's there.
Exactly. Your system is ready for it. So you're training yourself to actually seek those things. And it's a bit disappointing when you have sometimes a smooth sailing, easygoing day and nothing's really challenged you in some way. It's a different way to approach it. As opposed to if you don't do that thing first up in the morning or when you've got the energy, chances are you put it off to the end of the day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then chances are, I'm too tired now, I'll take that one on tomorrow. And procrastinate. And you can procrastinate for days, weeks, months, even decades, actually.
Yes, no, definitely. And it's actually unfortunate. I come across a lot of people, I'm sure you have too, because of the programming of either, you know, I don't want to say Western society, but because of our just a lot of the stimulus that's out there in media and all these sort of things, we're almost by default programmed by fear. And so it's the fear of the unknown, or, you know, if there's potentially something that could go wrong, it's almost as bad as if it did go wrong, but it hasn't happened yet. You know, and so a lot of people they get paralyzed by this, but what if this and what if that? And like you said right at the beginning, I completely resonate with that. We almost need to get past that stage, don't we?
And we have to shift our mindset again, like, you know, shift your mindset to look for challenges, look for gratitude and compassion. You know, we are hardwired, like biologically, we are hardwired we do seek the horizons, part of our, you know, prehistoric fight and flight response and all that, you know, story, where we have what's called the reticular activating system. And our reticular activating system, it scans the environment around us and it looks for danger and it looks for fear, it looks for things that might harm us. But you can train your reticular activating system in some ways to also look for challenges and meet them, or look for things you're grateful for in the day. And you actually hardwire those regions of your brain to look for things that fulfill you. You know, doing some sort of gratitude practice where you look for 3 things you're grateful for in a day, and then you actually start shifting your mindset around that. You know, really powerful practice. A good example of the reticular activating system, if you haven't heard of it, you know.
No, I've heard of it. It's completely on board with what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And many people may not have heard of it, where it might be an example where, you know, you buy yourself a red mini car because, you know, you're pretty cool and you thought red mini cars are cool. No one has one. And then before you know it, you drive your red mini car and then, there's another one.
Everyone's got a red mini car.
Everyone's got it, because you're starting to scan the environment for what you know. So if you train yourself to scan the environment for, you know, kindness and compassion and development and progress and all these things, you'll see it more and you'll recognize it more, and chances are you'll work with that, which is great.
Oh, it's very powerful, the whole reticular activating system, because if you're one of those people who are, you know, whether if you're looking for a job or you're looking for work or you're looking for opportunities or you're looking for, the more you train yourself to look for these things or look for what you want, the more you'll find it. You know, because things don't just happen by chance. I really truly believe you got to train yourself to be aware of what's around you, put yourself in the right situations, and you almost create your luck in a way, don't you?
Well, you open yourself up really in many ways. You know, they say open it up to the universe or whatever it is, but you're just opening yourself up to opportunity. And then once you open yourself up to that, you'll start meeting these people and these things and these opportunities. It's really, as opposed to a closed mindset where you're comfortable with what you do and you don't want to take any challenges or changes, and you're not open to that conversation. So it doesn't resonate with the frequency of the people around you.
Yes, 100%. Now tell me something, Melo. You obviously, when you went through this journey, discovered yourself a little bit more, and you know, you started your business, and your business started to almost evolve or graduate to different levels. As you were going through this, can you remember some of the big challenges you had right at very early days, you know, first 12, 18 months of your business or something, when you first got started? You know, what were some of those doubts, fears, challenges, things that kind of you might have come across that people, you know, when they come across this stuff, I guess I'd just like you to share that and maybe how you might have dealt with with something like that? Maybe share some pearls.
Yeah, definitely as a sort of startup and as a first time on your own type thing. I think it's easy. There's an old saying that we often overestimate what we can do in a year, that we underestimate what we can do in 5 years. So sometimes you want to do everything tomorrow, and you want to do everything right now and get all the results. And I definitely learned that to be patient and to have a bit of a longer term vision, but also to work on your goals. And sometimes things didn't work out. I mean, I was designing a 6-week online mindfulness course, and I had not much tech, or I had zero tech experience. So I started hiring people and telling them about my vision. And first of all, if they weren't aligned with my vision, it definitely didn't work. If they weren't aligned with my values and vision, that definitely worked. But then I trusted and entrusted my nice good nature into their the work that they do. And I had 3 or 4 developers which totally took me for a ride and took my money and ran more or less. So I learned the hard way in that way to really be clear in what my mission is, and then hire the right people. But that was a big learning curve. That took me, I thought it was only going to take me a few months to build this course. It actually took me 3 years to build it. With all the learnings along the way. Yeah, exactly. So that was one big thing. So the other thing, you can't just do it all yourself. When you think you can do it all yourself, all the social media and all the projects and all the things, you can't hire people or align yourself and surround yourself with people that have done it already or been there already, and seek help from them as much as possible. That'll be probably the main ones.
Those are 2 good ones. Yes.
Yeah, following your and being flexible and adaptable along the way to sort of if that's not exactly the way it worked out, fine. Let's just follow that route for a while and see what it is, but still be clear on the foundational vision or mission that you want to do. Yeah, that's a big one.
Oh, fantastic. You talk a lot about goals and having a vision and why and all that. I mean, I know it's probably one of the most important things you can try to work on yourself and get clear on. But did you find the minute you had that clarity, it was easier for you to take steps towards achieving something? Whereas if you didn't have that clarity, you it's almost like navigating in the dark. You don't know where you're going.
It's a roadmap, basically. So once you can sit down and clearly. Well, it's sort of a 3-step process. So the vision and the mission are coming from your values. So if you can go back to your basic values, what they are, you might bring it down to 3 or 4 core values that define you. Yeah. And then every single decision that you make from now on, you have that absolute clarity. You take it through your values filter, and you say, does that align with my values? No. Okay, I'm going to take the other way. And then you continue to do that. And that will craft your vision. And your vision is usually the bigger picture. I want to help as many people on this planet right now to meditate and to learn mindfulness, for the benefit of their health. And then the mission is a subset of that. So the mission is how I do that. So how I do that is I go out to corporate companies. And this week alone, I've already spoken to about 1,000 people. Last week to about 3,000 people virtually in different places. So I'm well on my way with my mission to achieve my vision, to help as many people as possible. And that all comes back to the values. And there's been clients that I have, sometimes it's a financial decision, whatever it is that doesn't align with my values, then I won't take that client on.
Yes.
And so it's really important that it comes back, it goes through that filter. Does that align with me? No. Okay. I'll move on to the next.
And so it's okay. It's okay to say no if things don't align, or when you get that gut feeling. It's good to trust your instinct, trust your gut when making these sort of decisions, not just what's on paper.
That's right. Yeah. And then move on to, and a no can lead to a good next.
Yes.
You close that no, but that doesn't mean it's the end of any discussion. That means next. What's up next?
No,
so
perfect.
It's a really good lesson.
Perfect. And obviously now you've been in business a number of years, and you've been making good strides, and you're evolving and continually changing and adapting, like you said. How important is technology in what you're doing? I mean, I know you said when you first started, you didn't have that side to your business, but have you found technology is now something that's reasonably well integrated with what you're doing? And how much importance would you place on technology? in your business?
Well, right now in this day and age with the COVID situation going on right now, everything is virtual, right? So we have to embrace technology, and I think it's very important. So going back to basics, like even something as simple as creating a database of people and support network around you, a mailing list, so to speak, so you can communicate to them. Whether it's MailChimp newsletters or whatever it is, we need to embrace that. Social media is good, bad, and ugly. But we need
Yes.
we need to sort of find what platforms work for you, and that's how you can communicate your messages, and embrace it again, and don't use what you don't want to use, and focus on what you do want to use. But right now, a really good example with technology is I would normally go out to corporate companies and maybe present to 40 or 50 people.
Yeah.
And in a boardroom type situation. But now with technology on my side, I can get in front of 500 or 600 people in one sitting, and it can be national. Like last week I was speaking to Dubai, South Africa, Hong Kong, so I would have had that opportunity in the past. And that's one great thing about this virtual world we're living in, and people are much more open even to online Zoom coaching, where in the past I would struggle actually to get some clients over the line.
Yeah, now it's almost common. It's almost more acceptable, and it's more mainstream, isn't it? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So embrace all those things, but with any technology, I think use it and don't abuse it, or
that's really
work with what works for you, and don't overwhelm yourself with it.
Don't overwhelm you, and keep it simple as much as possible.
Keep it simple, and if you need to hire someone that does your back end technology, do so. Because last thing you could do is spend hours and hours of work on something that someone can do for you in 2 minutes, and really embrace that. And I don't love technology, to be honest, but I know how to. I know how most function.
Yes. Oh, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. It's something that you can't ignore, but you just need to find the right balance for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
How important would you say having someone to guide you, like a coach or a mentor, or someone, at least in the early days? Then again, even if you, like you said, you work with people who are very successful in what they do. What's your advice in terms of someone either seeking that type of help, or trying to find a group of like-minded people to work with or associate yourself with, so you're not trying to do your business on your own?
Oh, very important. Very important. Whether it's even working in what do they call those hub spaces, community hub spaces, where you work together and you can bounce ideas off other people. So if you want it as informal as that can be a nice supportive network where they run seminars and workshops and in-house things, and you connect with other people. So it could be as informal as that. It could also be you take on a mentor or a coach for 12 months or 6 months. And I think it's very important, because a coach can offer you a perspective that you can't see. You're in the business and you're working on the nuts and bolts of it, and a coach can keep you accountable. They can show you a different way, or they can guide you, and they push you with the best intentions.
Yes.
So I always seek a coach that's been there, done that in maybe the work that I'm trying to do. And someone that's going to push me with the best intentions, and again going to that seek the uncomfortable. And otherwise you can't do it all alone. You can try to wing it with a few little things online and stuff, but I think seek someone that's been there, done that, and can talk the talk and walk the walk, as they say. And then use that valuable information, and you'll accelerate your learning curve pretty quickly.
That's the point. Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. I mean, like you said, you can try and figure it all out on your own, but if someone has done it and done it successfully, or at least has a roadmap that can simplify it and really help you get there quicker, why not try it? Why not explore it? I think you don't have to recreate the wheel all the time. I think that's really, really good advice. In terms of work-life balance, I think we've sort of touched on aspects of this, before, but, how important is it, Melo, that people, no matter what they do, even in the early days in business, or even when business gets really tough, that they have a perspective that, work either starts or stops at certain times, and you've got to fit in a bit of diet and exercise and sleep and all of these. What would you say to someone to kind of help them with that part of it?
So important, really important, actually, because work is only one part of your life, basically. And I really dislike the question when you go out to a social, dinner or a party, and someone says, "Oh, what do you do?"
Yeah.
And then you tell them, "Well, I say I travel, I hang out with my family,"
Yeah.
and they want to know what I work as, so then they can make
Yeah.
a on what that
Judgment
is. And
call of it. Yeah.
sometimes I even get playful if I'm in a place where I don't really know anybody. I might say, "Oh, well, I'm a dolphin trainer actually, or I'm a marine biologist or something," just to sort of see the reaction, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting, because your work shouldn't define you. Your work is just part of the pie. And a lot of the work I do when I'm coaching, you might do it yourself, where you look at, your life pie, you look at, your work, you look at your hobbies, you look at your personal development, you look at your finances, and they're all different pieces of the pie. And work is only a small part. It shouldn't
Yes.
be a huge part. And actually, with resilience training and things like that, and being more resilient, and there's great studies come through the military, where the people with the most pieces of pie were the most resilient, actually. When there was some studies where they were getting interrogated, those tortures where they interrogate you,
Yeah.
the ones that broke down the quickest were the ones that didn't have many pieces of pie. So they only had work and home.
Yeah.
So having those other focuses and those other focal points, I think, is super important. And like I said, with that fella that broke down and cried, he just got so consumed by his work that he lost balance, lost touch with his family. He cried because he realized that his son had grown up to 15 years old and wasn't really there for him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very important, and if you can learn that sooner rather than later, even if it's just some small little self-care things that you make sure that you set aside an hour to do, or be with your family or whatever it is, it's very important.
Oh, fantastic! Really, really well said just then. Melo, man, I've been actually taking notes while we're talking, just little words here and there, and I'm sure people who are listening, there's a lot of good stuff that you just shared in the last few minutes. But I want to get to a section that we normally get towards sort of the tail end of our chats, and it's really kind of shooting from the hip, and I call it a rapid response section. Now, it's nothing daunting. I'm just literally want to pick your brain, to see what first sort of thing that comes to your mind is.
Yeah.
Yep. So, do you have a favorite mode of learning?
Oh, definitely. I'm much more kinesthetic and visual, so I love to see and do, basically.
Okay, fantastic. And what about a role model or a hero, someone you look up to?
Oh, that's always a tough one. That one always comes. Am I allowed to say two or three, or
you
just one?
You can say two or three. 100%.
All right, because that's hard, because there's different.
It is hard. Yeah.
Yeah, different categories. So I'd say Bruce Lee. Love the work he did.
Yes.
I'd say David Attenborough. Very inspirational life. And then I'll go to a spiritual, Dalai Lama.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, it's not that you have to pick one, but one really is not great. But I can tell you're multifaceted, so you would have had different people influencing different parts of your life, which makes
a lot of people ask that question, like if you had to have a dinner party, who would you like to invite? And I'd like to invite all of them. I'd have Bob Marley there, I'd have Bruce Lee there. Come over.
It'd be a fascinating dinner party. Now, is there a quote or something you remember from your journeys and all that you'd like to share, or something that just stands out that you've got either written somewhere on your wall or something like that you'd like to share?
I got two there that I'll share.
Yeah,
one is my own quote. One of my own quotes is, "On the other side of fear, there is trust."
Love it. Yep.
And the other one I like that's pretty valid for now is, "Fall down 7 times, stand up 8."
Oh, fantastic! Great.
Yeah.
Are they both your quotes, or?
No, the other one is a Japanese proverb, actually. The "Fall down 7 times, stand up 8." It's a really good learning.
Yeah. No, great. Got those. What about any kind of cause or charity that you support, or you believe in, and has been a big impact in your life?
Oh yeah, definitely. So well, in my travels through Africa, we actually opened an orphanage, or are involved in an orphanage there in Tanzania, where we have 70 children that we look after, and our goal, this is with a mutual friend in Holland, and our goal is to get these children through to education, to get them through to high school. So we started that nearly 20 years ago now, and doing some great work there. But also more recent is, after the earthquakes in Nepal, a friend of mine in New York started a foundation called Children We Serve, where we're rebuilding schools and rebuilding teacher training centres in Nepal, to rebuild the villages. So Children We Serve, another very passionate project. And I'm really careful on who I do support and making sure that the dollar for dollar goes for the person, and those two I know 100%.
No, that's great. And I did read a little bit about that. I think you might have mentioned that somewhere on your site or something. But no, I think that's really, really great. And obviously it's aligned with your values and things like that. What about now something either quirky or, that you'd like to share? I don't know. I'll leave this one up to you. But I mean, you've done so many different things. So, everything is fascinating.
Oh, wow. That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
The quirky, well, let's say before I actually went on my trip to Africa, I used to have really long hair, like really long, like down to my bum nearly hair. Like
wow. Okay.
Yeah, and when I did enter Africa, actually crossing the Straits of Gibraltar from Spain to Africa, someone took a butcher knife for one of my friends that I was with, and literally just scalped me there and there.
Wow.
And shaved my head off 20 years ago. Shaved my hair off 20 years ago, and then never went back.
Never went back.
Yeah, long hair.
Scalp once, and you don't get scalped twice. No.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. Thanks for sharing that. So, look, what a journey you've been on, and you still are on, and obviously you've got lots of exciting things coming up in the works. What are your plans like for the next little while? I mean, are there any really cool projects you're working on? Anything we should keep our eyes out?
Apart from supporting a lot of people right now through this current pandemic we're in right now, and doing a lot of that work, which is busying myself, but I'm spending a lot of time actually compiling a lot of my experiences in life in a book, actually. So I'm writing a book, so giving myself some time each week to do that. It's been so exciting because I'm digging up sort of old stories and things. For example, caught malaria and was very sick, or these things. That's been amazing. That's been great. So I'm really focusing my time on that. Hopefully, stay tuned. Hopefully I can release that in 2021.
That's fantastic. Good luck to that. Have you got a title for it yet, or not yet?
Well, it'll be on the lines of the road to mindfulness, or the lessons I learned in mindfulness on the road, or something like that. So I haven't quite got it. Maybe once I finish and write, I'm sure the title will come to me. But it's more or less the lessons that I learned and how other people can benefit from that too.
Great. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Melo, what's the name of your business? And if people wanted to either find out more about you or reach out to you or connect with you, how do they go about that?
Yeah, so I was created under my name, so Melo Colarco, the easiest one, and website's probably easiest. That's MELOCALARCO. I'm not sure if you put that in the show notes, but there it is, like that. Yeah, so that's probably the easiest way. Otherwise, you can connect with me on LinkedIn under Melo Colarco. That's also another easy way. Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. Fantastic. Well, listen, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast, and I enjoy our chats anyway when we talk, but it's just so good to pick your brain a little bit more today and get some really good insights on the way you think, the things that have helped you from your past experiences, how they've shaped you to be the person you are, the kind of work you're doing, what you've got going for you in the future, all of that. Very exciting, very positive. And I hope if you're listening to this, you've got a lot of really good tips out of it. So, Melo, thank you once again for sharing your time with us.
Thanks, Gavin, for having me, and good luck with all the great work you're doing too.
Thank you so much. All right. Take care, my friend. If you like this podcast and would like to understand a little bit more about what was just discussed, then you're in luck. Simply head over to breakfreefromcorporate.com, and we have a fantastic bonus gift waiting for you to download. All we ask in return is that you leave us a review on iTunes and or Stitcher, whichever you use. And lastly, help us share this podcast around with your friends, your colleagues through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. We truly appreciate all your support, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Break Free from Corporate. Once again, to access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.